Okay. So, hello, this is the group behavior change presentation. My name is Nicole Roby, and this is my second semester at Ball State University. And my full-time job, I am an in-home behavioral therapist for children with autism.
Hi, I'm Asenet Vallejo, and this is also my second semester at Ball State University. My current occupation is an SPCE, and I do home health and clinic settings. And some of my caseload are children on the autism spectrum disorder and
Okay. My name is Letitia Abrams. I work at an autism clinic. I'm located in Louisiana, so like Shreveport, Louisiana area. I work with all autistic children. I've worked at 2 different clinics, some with autism and some off the spectrum. Right now, I'm a behavior therapist and an intern.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Tamunga. I've been going to Ball State for about 3 semesters now. I'm a behavior therapist at a small company. I work with kiddos with ASD.
And my name is Karen. I am a clinical supervisor for an agency that provides in-home ADA treatment for children with autism. I support behavioral treatment therapists who write treatment plans and implement behavior and teaching programs. And I also have my own caseload of children. Currently, I work with children ages 18 months to 8 years old.
Okay. Behavior change presentation. Supporting literature. A crucial component of applied behavior analysis is to facilitate learning in a productive way that promotes stimulus generalization in socially significant areas. Eldvik, Kimsey, and Kelsey, 2016, explained that a major challenge some individuals with autism face is their lack of generalization skills across multiple dimensions, including settings, vocabulary, and materials. Cooper, Heron, and Hewer, 2007, defined stimulus generalization as antecedent stimuli invoking a reinforced response in the presence of similar stimuli that share common physical properties. There are some discrepancies among practitioners on the most effective way to teach generalization. However, all can agree that a successful behavior change procedure will promote generalization. Generalization can be taught through single exemplar training, which involves presenting one exemplar at a time until mastery is achieved. Tucker, Gambit, and Walker, 2016, explained that the promotion of stimulus generalization can be accomplished by presenting a wide array of exemplars, also known as multiple exemplar training. In a recent study, Eldvik, Kimsey, and Kelsey, 2016, used sufficient exemplar training or single exemplar training to teach 4 people with severe autism past tense verbs. The procedure in this study included teaching 4 participants 1 verb at a time, and generalization probes were conducted until mastery was reached for the taught verb. The results of the study indicated that all participants generalized 3 to 8 novel verbs after training. The 3-month follow-up session showed participant 1 responding 63% correctly. For the verb probes, participant 2 did not have any correct verb probes. Participant 3 and 4 both responded 94% correctly in their verb probes during their 3-month follow-up session. The researchers suggest that sufficient exemplar training has advantages over multiple exemplar training because sufficient exemplar training allows for some individualization to the item being taught. Furthermore, the researchers explain that sufficient exemplar training allows the individual learning the material, adequate pacing, which could result in reduced teaching time and unnecessary repetition. Another insightful study was conducted by Kerf, Reeve, and Townsend, 2011. This study used multiple exemplar training to teach grade school students with autism on how to effectively share classroom materials. The 4 stimulus categories included art materials, toys, food, and gym materials. Within each category, 5 different exemplars were used. The sessions were conducted in various parts of the school to promote generalization. A correct response included a vocal phrase, like, try this, and the children had to physically hold the item away from their body to imply sharing. Each participant was taught 3 vocal phrases. All 4 participants learned to share during the treatment, and all participants demonstrated stimulus generalization during probe trials with novel stimuli. 3 of the 4 participants maintained the skills necessary to share with their peers in follow-up sessions. Additionally, unscripted vocal generalization was documented for each participant during treatment. The study demonstrated the effectiveness of multiple exemplar training with novel classroom materials and unscripted related phrases. Both of these studies indicate that single and multiple exemplar training can be useful tools for teaching generalization. Original study we chose to replicate is entitled The Effects of Single versus Multiple Exemplar Training on Vocal Identification of Artist Styles by Marshall Tucker, Jessica Gamble, and Dina Walker. This study was conducted in 2016. The participants in the original study included 6 graduate students. Each student studied single and multiple exemplar deck of cards. The single exemplar deck consisted of 1 painting by 3 different artists, and the multiple exemplar deck consisted of 3 paintings by 3 different artists. Participants were required to score 100% following an independent study of each deck. After testing out, they were able to move on to the generalization probe, at which time they were presented with novel exemplars. 4 of the 6 participants performed slightly better after multiple exemplar training. The difference in results were so close that the researchers concluded both single and multiple exemplar training may allow for stimulus generalization. I'm going to hand it off to Letitia.
Hi, I'm going to be talking about the purpose of the study, and I'm going to screen share. Okay, can everybody see my screen, the presentation? Okay. The purpose of this study was to examine the effects of single exemplar training and multiple exemplar training, procedures as they relate to the generalization and maintenance of a previously untrained discrimination skill. Specifically, single exemplar training and multiple exemplar training were used to train participants to vocally identify target paintings by specific well-known artists. Following the training, generalization and maintenance of this skill were tested to further provide information on the effectiveness of each training condition. My next thing that I will talk about is the methods section. For our participants and settings, the participants in this study were 5 female graduate students from Ball State University. All participants were enrolled in the same graduate level online class and ranged from ages 23 to 41. Inclusion criteria included a self-report of the understanding of the English language, access to a computer, access to Google Hangouts, and access to the file exchange on Blackboard, and enrollment in SPCE 611 online course for the spring 2018 semester. The study was conducted via Google Hangouts for accessibility for all participants who reside in different geographic locations. All participants engaged in experimental conditions from their home in a generally distraction-free environment. The primary experimenter scheduled experimental sessions with participants via email and provided pre-test, multiple exemplar, single exemplar training card decks via file exchange on Blackboard. The decks were not accessed by participants until the experimenter gave the instruction to do so at the appropriate time in the session. Participants utilized screen share technology so the experimenter could monitor what they had on their screen, and the appropriate file was downloaded that was being studied and was closed at the end of the participant's time of study. The next section I will talk about is the materials. The study utilized a total of 54 4x6 index cards with paintings by 6 different artists, each with a specific style of painting. One deck of cards, Deck A, displayed Picasso, Monet, and Delacroix. The other deck of cards, Deck B, displayed Cezanne, Braque, and Matisse. The decks used for single exemplar training had one painting for each of the 3 artists. The multiple exemplar decks had 3 paintings for each of the 3 artists. Each of the 54 total 4x6 index cards had the artist's paintings on one side and the handwritten artist's name on the back of the index card in black ink. The experimenter and participants had access to a computer with stable Wi-Fi access, a microphone, and audio capabilities. The participant and experimenter used access to the internet for Blackboard file exchange and Google Hangouts. The next thing I will talk about is the behavior definition. Vocal identification is defined as the graduate student's ability to emit the correct vocal response of the name of 6 different artists based on the displayed painting in front of them. Next, I'll be handing it off to my colleague, Liz.
Hello, I'm going to be talking about the second part of the methods section. Oh, there it is. Sorry, guys. Okay, data collection. Data collection. The data was collected using Google Hangouts. The session was live and recorded by Karen, the primary experimenter. The study required the primary experimenter to record correct and incorrect responses and the duration of timings for pretest, test out timings, following training in each condition, generalization, and maintenance probes. In order to receive a correct response, the participant had to state the artist's name correctly within 3 seconds. After the 3 seconds, any response was recorded as incorrect. But if the participant self-corrects their response accurately within the 3 seconds, it was recorded as correct. But if the participant self-corrects the response inaccurately within the 3 seconds, it was recorded as incorrect. During SET and MET, the primary experimenter recorded the time each participant spent studying and the number of attempted test out timings prior to reaching 100% accuracy. Design. A single group repeated measures design was used in this study. Confounding variables were controlled for by counterbalancing experimental conditions and stimulus presentation across participants. Baseline data for both SET and MET conditions were collected through a pretest in which participants were presented with novel stimuli from 5 different paintings by 6 different artists. The SET condition required participants to study a deck of cards with only 1 exemplar from each of the 3 artists, while the MET deck required participants to study 3 exemplars from each of the 3 artists. As part of the counterbalancing procedure, 3 participants studied single exemplar decks with paintings by Monet, Delacroix, and Picasso, which were artists A, B, and C. The multiple exemplar decks consisted of Braque, Matisse, and Cezanne, artists D, E, and F. 2 participants received SET with artists D, E, and F, and MET with artists A, B, and C. Baseline. The participants participated in a timed pretest. The participants had no knowledge as to what paintings belonged to what artist prior to the pretest. The pretest included a deck of 30 cards, which consisted of 5 paintings by 6 different artists. The participants were presented with paintings and had to guess the artists' names. If the participant didn't know the answer, they were able to say skip or pass to have the primary experimenter display the next card. The deck included the same paintings that was used in the generalization and maintenance probes. Duration from the first response to the last response was recorded along with the number of correct and incorrect responses. Participants had to respond below 50% accuracy to be included in the intervention phase. Treatment phase. The study consisted of a pretest, 2 training conditions, and generalization probes. The pretest was used to assess the baseline of the study. Participants were shown a deck of 30 cards with 5 different paintings from 6 different artists. Immediately after the participants took the pretest, they began to study one deck of cards of either SET or MET. Participants in the SET condition studied 3 cards with 1 exemplar from each artist. The amount of time the participants spent studying and the actual test time was recorded for each test, along with incorrect and correct answers. Participants in the MET condition studied 9 cards from 3 different artists with 3 exemplars each. Generalization probe took place 1 week after SET and MET condition were recorded. Generalization was used to see if participants would generalize what was studied in the 2 training phases. The generalization test consisted of 15 cards mixed with exemplars from 6 different artists. Across participants from 6. Okay, across oh, I lost my page. Okay. IOA. IOA was collected for each testing session. Pretest, SET, MET, and maintenance. During SET and MET, the primary investigator recorded the amount of time the participants spent studying and the amount of time they took to take the test. IOA for the second observers, Nicole and Asenet, recorded data independently from the primary observer. Since the sessions were live and recorded, the second observers were able to go through the videos of each participant and collect data independently from the primary investigator. The data was collected from 50% of the participants. Participant 2, Letitia, Participant 3, Asenet, and Participant 4, Nicole. IOA data was assessed by gathering incorrect and correct responses along with the duration of the study time and test time. IOA data for correct and incorrect responses was calculated by dividing the lower number of responses recorded by the higher number of responses recorded and multiplied the quotient by 100. IOA for duration of the study time, test time, and probe timings were calculated by dividing the shorter timing recorded by the longer timing recorded and rounding each result to the nearest 5-second duration and multiplying the quotient by 100. The secondary observers and the primary investigator were always in agreement with 100% IOA when it came to the correct and incorrect responses for the participants in each phase. The IOA in recording duration of the study varied slightly across participants 2, 3, and 4. IOA of 90% was the lowest in the study time of participants 2, 3, and 4. Because of primary experimenter recording error, the secondary observers were in agreement in the test time across participants. The secondary observer recorded an extremely low IOA for participant 2, Letitia, with 39% in multiple exemplar A. Across the other participants 3 and 4, the lowest IOA in test time was 83%. Generalization IOA was 94 and maintenance IOA 99 across participants 2, 3, and 4. Participants 1 and 5 did not participate in collecting IOA since the study only required 50% of participants. Treatment integrity. Treatment integrity was assessed by primary investigator and a second observer by using a 12-step checklist. Treatment integrity was recorded in all sessions by the primary investigator, while the second observer recorded treatment integrity in 50% of the sessions during training and testing phase. According to the primary investigator, treatment integrity was 96%. The agreement between the secondary observer and primary investigator averaged to 100% in treatment integrity due to the primary investigator forgetting to implement the instructions of Step 2B and Step 7 for Participant 1, Liz. I will now hand the presentation off to my colleague, Karen.
All right, I will discuss the results of our study. All right, first of all, we'll take a look at the time spent studying each deck. Remember that the single exemplar training deck contained 3 cards. There was 1 card from each of 3 artists. Artists A, B, and C were Monet, Delacroix, and Picasso, while artists D, E, and F were Braque, Matisse, and Cézanne. And then our MET deck, or our multiple exemplar training deck, contained 3 cards from each of the artists for a total of 9 cards. The presentation of the single exemplar or multiple exemplar conditions, as we discussed earlier, were counterbalanced across participants to control for sequence effects. Some of the participants received the single exemplar deck first, while others received the multiple exemplar deck first. And in addition to that, one of the single exemplar decks contained paintings by artists A, B, and C, while the other contained paintings by artists D, E, and F. So the order of the deck and the order of the artist presentation is indicated on our table under the participants' names. All but one participant spent more time studying the multiple exemplar deck, which remember contains 9 cards, than the single exemplar deck. Of note was that participant 2, Letitia, spent more time on that single exemplar deck. All right, we'll take a look at the results and our graphing from our participants. If we're looking at this graph, this was participant 1, Liz. During her pretest condition, she correctly identified 4 of the paintings in the novel exemplar deck, and those were all Picasso paintings. Multiple exemplar training actually showed better generalization. You can see that she received an average of 12, while single exemplar training was lower than that. And then when it came to the maintenance phase, it was interesting to note that the single exemplar deck actually resulted in better generalization than the multiple exemplar deck. For participant number 2.
Hey, Karen.
Yeah.
Can you move down the PowerPoint slide? I don't think we're on the same, like we can't see your graphs a little bit. We're still on the results page.
Oh, all right. Let's try this.
There you go.
All right, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so we're on participant number 2, which was Letitia. On her pretest, she received no correct responses and actually had equal improvements in both the single exemplar and the multiple exemplar training conditions. In Letitia's case, we actually had better maintenance of the artist identification in the multiple exemplar training condition than in the single exemplar training condition. In the multiple exemplar training condition, she had 3 corrects, and in the single exemplar training maintenance condition, there were 0 corrects. All right, just to check, did that advance for you to the next page?
It's still on Letitia.
Okay. All right.
There you go.
So for participant 4, which was Nicole, again, she had 0 correct responses in the pretest condition. These were all novel paintings. In the generalization phase, she did better in the multiple exemplar condition than in the single exemplar condition. However, it wasn't a significant difference. It was actually a 1-point difference between single exemplar and multiple exemplar training. We take a look at the maintenance phase. She received 0 correct responses with the multiple exemplar training and 3 correct responses with the single exemplar training. All right, when looking at the overall data showing the effects of single exemplar versus multi-exemplar training, it can be noted that the multiple exemplar actually resulted in higher generalization scores, indicating that it is effective in supporting generative or untrained learning. However, when examining the maintenance of that generative learning, the results were equally divided between the single exemplar and the multiple exemplar training condition. Of note in this table is that participant 5, who is myself, scored 100% on the probing, and that is because as the primary experimenter, I had access to the paintings. I prepared them and presented them to all 4 participants prior to my testing, so I had a significant amount of time being exposed to those. And because I received higher than 50% on my probe condition, I was excluded from the remainder of the study. In terms of social validity, a social validity questionnaire was presented following the testing. The questions included, did you learn anything from the study? Would this study be likely to teach researchers about testing and teaching? Would you be able to recognize the artists now that the study is completed? Did you have fun during the study? And would you participate again if given the opportunity? This questionnaire utilized a visual analog scale and was analyzed by measuring where the participants marked the scale. We actually measured in centimeters from the beginning of the scale to the end of the scale to determine the ratio of agreement or disagreement on those questions. And here are the results of that. In terms of the social validity, everyone agreed that they had learned something from the study. So looking at this, the results, if we had 0 centimeters, the participant had indicated definitely yes, they agreed with that question. If they had indicated 12 centimeters, then they completely disagreed with the statement on the questionnaire. So the lower the score, the more the agreement, just to be clear. So they agreed that they had fun during the study replication. This was similar to the study that we replicated. Everyone else in that study had agreed that they also enjoyed the study. And so the agreement that something had been learned and that participation in the study was fun is indicative of social validity in terms of examining single and multiple exemplar training. Everyone also agreed that this research contributed to the researchers' knowledge regarding teaching and testing procedures. And finally, all participants agreed that they would consent to participate in further research regarding single and multiple exemplar training procedures. So from here, I'm going to hand this off to Asenath.
Hi, I will be discussing conclusion and limitation. So in the study, the effects of multiple exemplar training to those of single exemplar training were compared on generally responding of novel paintings by us graduate students. Results showed that 3 of 5 participants, regardless of the artist, performed better on generalization test after MET conditions. Considering outcomes, it may be implied that multiple exemplars of each artist style can assist in generalization to the novel paintings by each artist compared to a single exemplar from each artist. Performance considerations over study time may also be accounted for. Time spent studying is recorded to have been longer in MET conditions than in SET. Each deck used in the study, A and B, reflected the differences in visual style, which may have also influenced results concluded. Also, based on outcomes, participants performed better with deck A compared to deck B. Comparing scores for pretest and maintenance test, all participants, except for the inclusion of 1, showed improvement, 3 of which were very small. Difference in SET and MET scores was also small for participants. This might indicate that the prompted task was not challenging enough to show large differences amongst MET and SET conditions. Some limitations to consider. In the study contained uncontrolled variables that may also have influenced results. One variable was the period between initial session and maintenance tests, which for each participant in our group was a week. And during this time period, participants may have engaged in additional study or review of test materials. Another variable to consider was the orientation of the paintings in which they were presented to the participants. We used horizontal and vertical orientations, and that may also have produced a stimulus for the participants' responses. All discussion and testing was done online, so relying on technical sources may also have set limitations for physical face-to-face interactions, lack of reinforcement, and possible hindered results due to technology glitches and lags. So with that being said, that concludes our presentation unless anybody else has any additional comments.
No, good. Let's see.
All right, so you could stop recording.